Greetings. In this video I'm going to just show you the basics of how to place the case, open the case, get the instrument out of the case, put the shoulder rest on, tighten the hair, and just talk you through the different parts of the instrument and the bow as we go. So when you teach your students, when they get their instruments, you need to teach them where you want them to place their instruments, and it's just as part of the routine when they come into the room. You need to, it's all about routines at the beginning. So what should you do first when you come into the room? If they've got their backpack or the books, put their books under their chair, then go get their instrument out of their locker or wherever the instruments are stored. Put the instrument where you want it. Now, you always want it on a flat surface. You don't want kids opening the instrument case on their laps. So a lot of teachers will have them put it over on the side of the room, either on the floor. Some teachers have extra chairs in the room, and the students can put their cases on the chair, or they can open it on the floor by their seat, and then once they get the instrument and bow out, they can put the case under their seat or even next to the seat if you've got a really big room and lots of space. So it just depends on the teaching environment that you're in. But you always want to open it on a flat surface. Now, every case is a little bit different. Some have latches, some have zippers. Many of them have both. So in this particular case, there's two zippers. So you want to unzip it around, and then there's a latch, and then you open the case. Now, some violin and viola cases come with this blanket. So just want to remove the blanket, and just draping it over the case like this is a good place to put it, because blankets, this is one of those things, it's just a lot of times they get lost very quickly if you toss them to the side, or so you want to just place it somewhere where you're going to remember it when you pack the instrument up. Now, what I recommend you have, and in all the instruments for string techniques class, I've put these in here. You're going to have a cleaning cloth to wipe the rosin off the strings when you're done. There will be rosin, and there will be a shoulder rest. Now with kids, with little kids especially, you may be able to just use a sponge, and you can buy specially shaped sponges from places like Char. If you decide to go with an even less expensive, just standard kitchen sponge or something like that, just make sure there's no chemical treatment on the sponge, that it's just a plain sponge. But for kids, a lot of times they can get the support they need with just a sponge. And there are professional players who just use a small sponge too. They just connect it onto the body of the instrument with a rubber band wrapped around the bout. So, but for most adults, what I find is that the shoulder rest gives you that extra support, so that it keeps the instrument from slipping and falling. So I really like the shoulder rests. As you can imagine, in string education, opinions are mixed on this, but I do like the shoulder rests because it gives a real dependable support. Now, I'm going to show you how to apply the shoulder rest to the instrument in just a minute. But when you take the instrument out of the case, there will be a Velcro usually that holds the neck in place. So just undo that, remove the instrument by the neck, and just gently lift it out. And you want to hold the instrument by the button, the neck. Generally, you don't want to be grabbing the body with your hands and getting oil deposits all over it, because it may damage the varnish. So you just want to hold it by the neck up here. That's what it's designed for. There's no varnish on the neck, and just hold it by the button. Okay, so up here's the scroll, and as you can see, the scroll is connected to what's called the peg box, and the pegs are fitted into the peg box. Now on most violins, violas, and cellos, the pegs are held in place just by friction. So they're cut specifically to fit into the peg box. So it's just wood on wood, and there is stuff that we can apply to the pegs. I've got some right here, back here somewhere. Here it is. So there's this compound they make. It's sometimes called peg dope. Looks like brown lipstick. Keep this away from the middle school boys. They'll try to impress the girls by putting it on. It can be very amusing, but also a waste of good peg compound. So you put this stuff on the pegs, and when you're changing strings is usually the best time to do it. And what this does is it keeps pegs from slipping, and it also makes it easier for them to turn. So if you're having any problems with sticky pegs or slipping pegs, now you can remove the string, put peg compound, and put it back on. It can be a little tricky because the strings get all kind of curled up. So it's generally a part of the maintenance with changing strings is putting peg compound on. Anyway, the scroll, the peg box, the pegs are usually made of ebony, a hardwood, and they fit into the peg box. And if you look carefully, you can see how the strings are wound around the pegs. So take a look at that. This is the first string peg. You can trace it back and see where the pegs go, but this will be the first string, the E string, and then you've got the A string, the second string, the D string, and the G string. Okay, so now coming down from there, we have what's called the nut, and this is tapped in there. It sits in there, and it's where the string ends. So past here into the peg box, it's not part of the vibrating length of the string. And the other end vibrating length of the string ends at the bridge down here. This is called the fingerboard, this piece of ebony wood that is glued to the neck. And the neck back here is part of this whole piece. The scroll, the peg box, the neck are all one piece, and then that's fitted into the body of the instrument here. So this is all one piece that's glued in, and it can be removed and repaired. So coming down, okay, we've got strings, right? The 4 strings, the fingerboard, the neck. All right, so technically the front is the fingerboard, the back is the neck. It connects to the body. The bridge is not glued on. It just floats on the top, and it's held in place by the tension on the strings. Over time, because of the shifting, the strings stretch, and then you tune them back up. And so over time, because of this stretching and retightening that goes on, the bridge can move, and it will need periodic adjustment. So the top. So we've got the F holes. We have this is called the top, this piece, and it's made usually of a softer wood like spruce, so that it can transfer the vibrations well. So a harder wood would not work as well for the top. So it's generally something soft, something from the pine family. Spruce is the most common. Then we have the sides, and the sides are divided into what we call the upper bout, the middle or C bout, and the lower bout. And then the sides here then connect to the back. And the back and the sides are made of a hardwood. Maple is most common. The bridge is also made of a seasoned maple. Inside, if you peek inside on the high string, the first string side, you can see a sound post inside the instrument. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get that on camera, but you can peek inside and you can see the sound post. The sound post is very, very important, and it's held in place by the bridge, and so it's fitted in there. If the bridge collapses, the sound post might fall, and you really need to have to take it to a luthier, an expert, and they've got a special tool. They can go inside, grab the sound post, and set it back up. Now, the sound post may shift over time. If your instrument is starting to not sound the same, it might be because of sound post moving. So, and sound post adjustments often, I can tell you as a bass player, it's miraculous what can happen with just a sound post adjustment in terms of helping the instrument resonate and open up more. So the purpose of the sound post is to transfer the vibrations from the top to the back. And it also offers a structure. It helps support the top of the instrument. And inside on this side, you can't see it, but there's a piece of wood called a bass bar that's attached to the inside of the top, and it runs down the length of the bass side of the bridge, and that also offers support and transfers the frequencies, the vibrations through the instrument. So coming down here, we've got the tailpiece, and you see on this one, it's got fine tuners fitted into the tailpiece, and this is really nice to have tailpiece with fine tuners for beginners. It really helps because we're going to be using the fine tuners to adjust the pitch, because it's much simpler to do this than to turn the pegs. So we'll teach the beginners how to work the fine tuners first before we teach them how to use the pegs. We have a chin rest here. Chin rests come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. Some span over the tailpiece and some do not. I like this one that doesn't span the tailpiece. The ones that go over can sometimes get pokey up here for kids, but some of them don't. It all depends on the person. But we've got the chin rest, and that's attached. And there's a tool that you can get, a special tool, if the chin rest comes loose. You don't want to just be sticking like a paper clip in there because it'll scratch up the side. So there's a special tool that you can buy that will adjust that. This is the N button right here. Notice that this piece of metal that wraps around, it's called the tail gut because it used to be made of gut, although most of them are made of metal now, and it connects the tailpiece to the button. Now, if this breaks, which does sometimes happen, especially if it's made of lower quality material and it just deteriorates over time. If this breaks, the whole mechanism, the tailpiece will come flying off, the bridge will collapse. It'll be like the end of the world, but it's really not a big deal. You just got to get a new tail gut and put it on. Everything will be fine. I actually, when I was playing bass on a school instrument years ago, the tail gut, I couldn't figure out why my bass kept going flatter and flatter. I kept having to tune it up, and finally the tail gut just broke right in the middle of rehearsal. My bridge went sailing into the viola section. Very noisy, very disruptive, but everything was fine. So those are the parts of the instrument. Now, applying the shoulder rest, if you have something like a Kuhn or an Everest or that type, one side of it will be wider. There will be a wide end and a thin end. And the wide end will go behind the chin rest. Okay, so if you hold the instrument upside down, it'll be away from you, the wide end. You slip the feet on one side and slip it on the other, and you can just work it up the sides of the instrument like so. And voila. Now, you want to see how it fits, and some of the things I see some people do stuff like this sometimes. Generally, you want to have. We start from a neutral position with having the feet on the one side at the same distance up the side as the feet on the other, and we just make some small adjustments as needed. And then when you take it off, you just pop it off. You do want it to be secure. One of the problems is if people don't slide it up the bout so it's secure, it'll fall off really easily, and that can be kind of a distraction in class for sure if shoulder rests are popping off all the time. So you do want to make sure that they're secure on the kids' instruments. Also, a feature on these is let me put the violin down for just a sec so I can show you. These turn, and you can make them taller or shorter. And so you know, if you think about it, you put your thumb on your collarbone and your index finger under here. That's what I need. And the instrument is giving me, you know, that. So I really need about that much is what I need from the shoulder rest. If the shoulder rest is too tall, it's going to be pushing the neck back like that. And if it's not tall enough, the student might be leaning down like this. So you want to just make sure at the beginning, take time to make sure everybody's got a shoulder rest or a sponge or some sort of support, and that it's giving the student the support they need. Really critical, because if you don't do that at the beginning, you're going to have kids with instruments that are slipping around, and they're going to wind up having to hold it up completely with their arm. You'll see a lot of this type of thing, and then everything's out of position, nothing is right. So you really need to take the time to make sure that it's properly set up. If you have a shoulder rest like the wolf, it's the side that says wolf is what goes underneath the chin rest side. You can also look and see the dip. It's the side that has the dip in it that's you want to be on your shoulder. So like this, I've got one of these wolves. And this works fine. This works fine for me. So the test is, can you let go? Can you let go? Reach over, touch your shoulder, wrap your hand around the bridge. Do you have it? You know, do you have it? You want it up on the collarbone, and you want to be hands free. You don't want to have to support the instrument with your left hand. So that's what we're looking for with the shoulder rest. I just wanted to show you that, since we're doing this remotely, how to put the shoulder rest on. Okay, the other thing that's in the case is the bow. Now, we want to do this latch. The latch should go between the hair and the stick. You see that? Let me make sure. The latch goes between the hair and the stick, and sometimes people put the bow back in incorrectly. Notice the tip is in this part up here, and that's because the tip is the most fragile part of the bow. It needs to be protected. It's really important to teach kids not to be sword fighting or banging things with the tip of their bow. It can break. I think it was my second year teaching, I saw this 9th grade boy, and he's like banging the shoulder of the girl in front of him in class to get her attention. Snap. It's pretty much game over for the bow. I've seen, I think it's Edgar Meyer, the great bassist, has a bow that's taped up here, and you know, Edgar of course sounds like $1 million all the time with it, but for most of us mere mortals, we need to replace the bow. So this is the stick. This is called the hair, not strings. It's called the hair. And to tighten the hair, you turn the screw down here. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Question I get all the time is, how tight should the hair be? How many turns? Well, okay, so the thing with bows is the hair stretches over time, so the number of turns you need to do might change. It might not always be exactly the same. But some things, general guideline, pencil can slide through. That is one general guideline. Another thing, so one thing to think is, how far is too tight? If you tighten it so much that the stick loses all of its camber, this is too tight. So we want to still have some curve, some what we call camber in the stick, all right? And you can check with the back of your finger. You don't want to touch the hair with your fingertips, because it'll leave oily deposits on, you know, you've got the oil on your fingers, and you don't want that getting on the hair, because you want the hair to be sticky. So don't touch the hair with your fingertips. Just touch the bow by the stick. This part down here is the frog. this metal piece is called the ferrule. I'll often call it the magic silver button with kids. This is the eye of the frog. This is the mouth of the frog right in here. Ow! Ooh. Yeah. Frogs, just remember, we don't want our finger in the mouth of the frog. Now, I learned this from my friend Mark Mutter. He calls this the big cave right here. And it's scary and dirty, and there's bears and vicious animals that live in the big cave. So we want to stay out of there. This right up here on the stick, this part right there, is the little cave, and it's air conditioned and really comfortable and beautiful. And so that's where we're going to put our thumb when we get to doing that. So we want to stay out of the large cave. But I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a different video on how to form the bow hold. So I just want to go over the parts here. The stick of the bow traditionally was made with Pernambuco wood, which is only available in Brazil in the Amazon rainforest. There's been restrictions placed on that wood, export of that wood now, because of the deforestation down there. So a lot of times the bows will be made out of a carbon fiber, and so that's what the stick is typically made of. The hair is horsehair, and so in the book I describe that, and it needs to be rehaired. Depends on how often you're using it. Generally once a year is the recommendation. With school instruments, you might need to put them on a rotation. A rehair will typically cost somewhere in the range of $50. So you know, if you're running a program and you own a bunch of instruments, you might think about how you're going to rotate the rehairing schedule so that all your bows can be rehaired within a few years' time. You can generally know it's time for rehairing when you get a lot of dirt down here, when it's very overstretched, when the screw gets stripped. It's time to bring the bow in, get rehaired. And then you can mark the bow with tape for your students if you wish to help them. So a tape in the middle, an upper half tape, a balance point tape, and that will that can help. So we talk about the tip, the frog, the lower half, the upper half, the middle, and the balance point is where the bow balances. It is between the middle and the frog. It's about I would say a fourth to a third up the bow from the frog. Depends on the bow. It's different on cello and bass bows slightly than it is on violin and viola bows. And the other thing I wanted to show you, so when you put it in, put the tip back in like this. Oh, big mistake. Loosen the hair first, always. Put the tip in, then put that in and latch it. And make sure it's latched. Real quickly, the tapes. So there has been research done showing that for beginners, putting tapes down, I like to put down a tape for first finger, second finger, and third finger. Putting these tapes down really can help establish left hand position and helps with intonation at the beginning. I think by the time they're reading sheet music, the tapes should come off because by the time you get to that point, if you're looking out here at the music, you can't really be looking at your tapes anyway. So that's what I recommend, and you can take them off one at a time because some kids get really used to it and very comfortable with the tapes, and of course they can play. They'll be able to play just fine once the tapes come off, but it just makes them a little uncomfortable. The tape I like to use that was recommended to me, you can get at an auto repair or an auto parts store. It's 1/8 inch detail tape. Comes in different colors, usually red, blue. Obviously black's not a good idea because it'll just blend into the fingerboard. But you may, some teachers like to use different colors for the different fingers or for the different parts of the bow. That's just personal choice. I don't think there's any research on whether that actually helps or not. But I'm sure for some kids that can be a helpful thing. is you can refer to the red tape, the blue tape, the green tape, or something like that. So then when you're done, put your shoulder rest back in, close it up, and then put the blanket back in. And then you want to close and latch your case. Make sure it's latched, and then make sure the zippers are closed as well. I have seen some real disasters happen. Most of the time that the instrument gets damaged is when it's not being played and it's not in the case. So putting it back in the case when it's not being played is a really, really good idea. It's really, really important at the beginning just to show students how to take it out of the case, how to put it back in its case, and understanding the nomenclature of the names of the parts, the type of wood that the instrument's made out of. They're really beautiful, gorgeous instruments that we've been playing for about 500 years now. So anyway, I will see you in the next video. Bye.